This past year, I published a book, and that could be my greatest accomplishment. But in all honesty, it was really having my mother read it and coming to grips with a lot that I've been through as a model. So I'm going to read to you tonight some experiences I've had as a model since 2001. Well, I was due for a gynecologist appointment. So this photo shoot wasn't totally off. I thought, as I lied there naked, with legs spread on a cold slab of metal. There were no stirrups, just my knees up and my high heels planted firmly. The chill of the table tingled as I slightly moved my hips each time the photographer said, "A little to the left, a little to the right." And each time he spoke, my ass elevated, moved, then graced the cold table again in hopes of now giving him the best shot, angle, and position of my vagina in waiting. The cool sensation of the table ran up my spine, my spinal nerves, and inspired the arch of my back as I exhaled and started to relax. As I lay there, the heat of the lights was really confusing me. My backbone was cold, but my vagina was getting warmer with each snap of the camera. I was trying to be calm, still, and professional as possible, but I couldn't help it. Opening my legs a little wider, I could feel the moistness forming down there. And I wondered if he could smell it, too. I listened for him to inhale and potentially smell me. I could tell he liked to work in silence. So with his lens focused, admiring and probing my insides, I relied on sound. I stared at the ceiling, just waiting for the click. He turned the lens a few times and adjusted his stance. And with another snap, my damp insides sucked in, tense, tight, until he says, "Okay, we got it," in a whisper. And then my vagina exhales, loosening up the pose, and the true forms of my lips is revealed and released until he tries again. I lift my head and peek towards the camera when we were done, which was cranked and proudly on its side on the tripod. Then I slide off the table like a wet seal. My work was done here, even though an imprint of my ass is still on the table. I went to the bathroom and wiped up my crotch, and then I inched up my jeans and put the $400 discreetly in my left pocket. We didn't make a dinner date or plan to see each other again for another shoot. This wasn't a friendship photo shoot. I was looking for exposure in front of the lens, with cash included, and he was looking for a freshly shaven vagina. I wouldn't know what would happen to the photos when I shut the huge studio door, and I really didn't care. I just focused on my next meeting. Yeah, part of me felt a little like a slut while adding some mascara on the one train, but I didn't care. I thought really about how lucky I was instead. Who'd have thought that just posting my picture on a free internet modeling website would bring me such results in cold cash and only take 1 hour? I had to get to Light Street, I didn't know, somewhere in Soho. And because I couldn't pronounce it with confidence, I considered it to be the weirdest street in the city. After 5 flights of stairs, I got to the artist studio. I felt overdressed when he greeted me in his underwear. And I could tell from the smell of the room that I wasn't the first female to enter that day. I was asked if I wanted a drink. The wine bottle's rim was already wet and looked half empty. A painter by trade, I guess, and the casting on Craigslist had said, "Looking for creative models." I submitted, and I had mentioned that I liked to make and model my own artistic bikinis. Hint, look on the table, you'll see. He wrote back and told me to come over and show him my work. I had a design in my bag, waiting, and I was anxious to whip it out and put it on. He walked around the studio with his cock pointing to me. His bulge would have been a turn-on, but he had a pot belly and some of his crotch hair stuck out of his underwear and it was just way too tight. Stretched canvases and a freshly painted portrait of Shaquille O'Neal was nearby. He might have some connections. Maybe he could help me get somewhere. I pictured myself in a magazine, another magazine, and he pointed me to a couch, which looked like something stolen off of the street, but I focused on my goals and sunk into the semen-colored fabric and sipped my wine, letting the late afternoon begin. He joined me, turning on the television for background noise. And while trying not to look at his belly or erection, I focused instead on his chipped tooth. I was hungry, so I took the piece of cheese he offered me, gulping it down, and he told me how difficult it was to be a short model when so many were so tall. And he told me about all the girls from Ford who had just left the moment before I arrived. I just imagined their long legs on the couch that I was sitting on. To impress him, and the chance that I might work with an agency one day, I reached for my bikini design. He wanted to see it on me immediately. Right now, and in front of him, my clothing fell to the floor, a colorful arrangement of cotton, denim, bra, panties, and I kept my heels on for confidence, but also since he said my little toes were cute. With teasing eyes, I let the bikini elastic snap my hips, and I enjoyed knowing I had uplifted his heavy bags under his eyes. And I turned to let him see the whole me. The top of the design didn't matter anymore, and I felt precious for a moment as he stroked the center of my chest with his paint-stained forefinger slowly. I was a piece of art today. Fuck those girls from Ford. I let him continue down the rim of my bikini bottom and closed my eyes and pretended someone else was caressing my crotch. When I opened them, he was grabbing a nearby camera and mentioned Maxim magazine. I had already been in Stuff magazine, but Maxim sounded so much better. And I just fell back into the couch and was ready for the lens and the chance. Arms up, lips parted, porn screaming loudly on the television, I squinted my eyes, bit my lip hard until he stopped rapidly shooting my body. I have to come while you wear that. He had already gotten rid of the camera and was touching himself aggressively. Sitting on the couch, there was already a soggy spot on his underwear. I bent down, swaying side to side, showing the full round shape of my behind. And knowing now my goal was to make him come. And if I did, who knows where it could lead. If my breasts were bigger and bounced more maybe he would have already came. So frustrated, he pushed a clear device on his dick, some sort of tube. And I stood up feeling tall for a moment and stuck my ass out again towards his face and let his tarnished hand squeeze it. His other hand on his penis pump. He was working really hard. I could see his reflection in the mirror. Grabbing tighter to my ass, I just put away my boyfriend, my mother, my homework from my mind. I stared at my reflection in the mirror in front of me. I wouldn't be allowed to leave until he came. Later, on the train, back to the dorms, somehow, a piece of his red, graying pubic hair was on my coat sleeve. And I wondered if the $60 was really worth it.